Hello, everybody. It's Alex again from the Remote Work-Life Podcast. I hope you're doing well. I have another exceptional guest with me today. I have Alex Denning, who is the founder of Ellipsis Marketing. Now, Ellipsis is a digital marketing agency for WordPress businesses. And their clients are WordPress product businesses and WordPress agencies. And I want to say a big thank you, Alex, to you for joining me today on the Remote Work Life Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Excellent. And as I always do, I'm quite inquisitive when it comes to getting to know my guests. I want to know their backstory. How do they get to where they are now? So, Alex, please tell us how did you get to becoming the founder of Ellipsis?
Sure. So I have been working remotely full-time for the last 4 years now. And I've been running Ellipsis for most of that time. As you mentioned, we live in like the WordPress ecosystem. So WordPress powers a third of the internet. And there's a big ecosystem of products and agencies, products and services around that. And those businesses help people do more stuff with their websites. So like on the agency side, for example, so like all of Facebook's non-Facebook product stuff runs on WordPress. And one of our clients like handles that for them. On the product side, like, I don't know, you might want a contact form and then you can purchase a plugin to do that. Or you might want a contact form which integrates with your CRM and does a whole bunch of automation stuff and also lets you sell stuff. And you can see how it gets out of hand quite quickly. That's where we live. That's what we do. How did I end up here? I guess by accident, because I like solving problems. And yeah, I get to solve them all day and people pay me money for them. So
always good.
I'd been involved in like the WordPress space for a long time. So I knew a lot of people around there. So I started off just doing bits of work, freelance, and it was stuff I enjoyed doing. And then as a freelancer, I was booked out the whole time. So at that point, it was either like, do you do that forever? Maybe put your rates up a bit. I decided that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to solve more problems for people. So that's why I started the agency.
And WordPress, I didn't realize it was a third of the internet that WordPress powers at the minute. I'm a big WordPress fan myself. It's just such an intuitive piece of, well, actually, you know what? I mean, it's intuitive to me. Maybe that's because I'm in it quite often. I'm not a programmer or anything like that, but I can actually work my way around it now that I've been in it for years. But it's one of those things that is just so relatively easy to understand for a newbie once you sort of get your head around it, would you say?
A big project that we, the community, have been working on. It's open source, so like everyone can contribute. A big problem we have been working on is how to make this initial experience a lot better. So last year, I guess the end of the year before that, with WordPress 5, there was a new editor, which still has some teething issues, but going forward, that's going to make that a lot easier to do. And the market that everyone's interested in is the small business with no website, because that's how a lot of people get started. And those obviously sometimes turn into bigger businesses, or even just medium-sized ones. And it's that initial experience that we're trying to work on. So yeah, I could tell you didn't want to say it's hard to use.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that. I mean,
it is at times, and we're working on it. Yeah.
So it's hard to use. Don't bother using it. Just go to Alex, and he'll sort you out. Basically, is what we're trying to say. But I think what's so attractive about WordPress, where small businesses are concerned, is I suppose the barrier to entry, well, if you look beyond the tech, it's pretty good, and you can bolt things on, and it's scalable, and you can make it look really professional if you're working with the right people. So
Yeah, exactly. So we don't make websites. Our clients are the people who make the stuff that you
yeah,
can bolt on.
yeah,
So yeah, we're all working on that.
yeah. So Alex is the guy that can really sort of, yeah, do all the singing and dancing in terms of the marketing behind all of that. And but I think, yeah, WordPress is. I love WordPress. What can I say? Anyway, well, Alex, I mean, I noticed as well from looking. Obviously, I've done my background research on you. You did a degree in politics and international studies, and you've had quite an interesting journey since then. Tell us a bit more about that. I'm especially interested in Miniclip.
Yeah. So yeah, so I did a degree in politics. I have never really used it. I guess it like taught me how to like think critically. I do use that a lot. So I can write very long things.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that was useful. Before that though, I worked at miniclip.com, which is now a mobile games company. At the time, it was a web games company. And yeah, it was for like free casual games. Years ago, miniclip.com was like the place where you'd spend your lunch breaks. And I got that job because I knew someone from the WordPress community who was their director of web development, who, long story short, I now co-author a weekly newsletter with.
Wow.
And he also works remotely now and doesn't work at Miniclip as well.
Goes to
So
show,
yeah, I did their social media, which is cool, and that I learned a lot about that. That was an office job in London, and yeah, it was my job to keep the community updated about the stuff we're doing with our games. That taught me a lot about like the working in a results orientated environment. Yeah, and it was good fun.
in terms of, you obviously made your progress now, where you, I suppose, went more and graduated towards the entrepreneurial side of things. You had WordPress, WP Shout, which looks like, again, a very much a strong WordPress connection there. And tell us a bit about that. And then after you've told us about that, tell us about your typical clients at the moment.
Sure. So WP Shout is a WordPress development tutorial blog, and it's still going today, although I haven't run it for I think like 6 or 7 years. And yeah, it teaches people WordPress development. When I was first figuring out stuff with WordPress, I wanted to know how to do things, and I couldn't find that. And being quite naive at the time, I thought, oh, I know, I can figure this out, and I know all the answers. So I made that website, and that was where I first like got to see what like growing an audience looked like and all that stuff. And that was really helpful earlier on for just figuring stuff out. So that's also where like a lot of the WordPress connections come from. So even though that was like 7 years ago, you kind of draw a straight line through there. That was how I knew Ben at Miniclip, and here we are.
And you haven't looked back since. And now you've established yourself as a freelance worker. How was that transition from freelance to business owner?
Yeah, so as I said, as a freelancer, I was booked out all the time, which is a good problem to have, but still a problem. So I knew I wanted to be able to solve more problems, and that meant growing a team. To start with, I just gradually started working with freelancers on individual projects. And then over time, started getting a bit more revenue and just took things very slowly. There are 4 of us now. We're currently hiring number 5. And we're now at a point where we can pick that up quite quickly, because we've got all the structures in place. But it took a while to really get used to it. I now don't know what's going on with client
In the
work.
best possible way.
But it took me like, I guess, a year, 18 months to be okay with that. We're now at a point where I can totally trust my team to get on with stuff. And I guess it wasn't I didn't trust them before, it was that I just needed to let it go.
It's funny because we had a conversation with another remote working practitioner who's been in the game for quite a while, Pilar Orti, and she was literally, words you've just described there, the words you've just articulated are just exactly what she said in terms of letting go and just allowing your team to get on with it.
Something that a kind of big, really useful book I read last year. It's called High Output Management. It's by the former president of Intel. There's one thing in that he was saying that here's this analogy where I want to delegate to you holding these scissors, and you give your team member the scissors, but then you hold on to them by the top so they can't take them, and then you say, well, why aren't you holding the scissors? It's because you haven't let go of the scissors. And I just read that and thought, oh, that's me.
I like that analogy though, because it's just
it's good. It
says everything all in one go. I mean, if you don't let go of the scissors, how are they supposed to get on with things and start the work?
So after I let go of being responsible for holding the scissors, then we start to make a bit of progress.
Excellent. So what's the makeup of your team now? You said you've got 4 in the team.
So we have a head of content and conversions, and Natasha leads our content and conversion focused projects. So that's our like regular content marketing stuff, which is probably most of our work day to day, as well as our copy projects. And recently we've added email into the mix as well, because again, it was just responding to what people were asking us for. And people were asking us for email, or other people weren't doing their email, and it was a really good opportunity. So we figured we needed to step in for people. Mm-hmm. Kaylee's our SEO specialist. She's our SEO content manager. So she does our specialist SEO stuff and also a lot of the content process. And she joined the seller this year, has let us add just more capacity and expertise around SEO, which has been great so far. And then Peter handles our promotion and outreach stuff. We're currently hiring a conversions manager who's going to just add more capacity for our conversion focused projects.
Mm-hmm. Okay, conversions. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, what I'd suggest as well, if that is you, if you're listening out there and you are a conversions manager or have worked in CRO.
Yeah.
CRO, that
we
kind
can't
of stuff.
We stopped using CRO because our clients didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, exactly. CRO, if you know what that word means, then you're probably the person for this job. So what I'd urge you to do is get across to Ellipsis's website, which is getellipsis.com, and have a look before you reach out and speak to anybody or apply to the job or anything like that. Look at the website.
Something I should do, which I haven't done, is we don't have a careers page. So if you want to actually apply, it's on weworkremotely.com.
I'll tell you what, though, there's so many small businesses that don't have a careers page, but I think just as important as having a careers page is having the content so that people can understand what the business is about. And
so we do have that, and we're so small that when people tell me that they've been following us for a long time in their cover letters, I just don't believe them.
So there's a tip for you. Don't just put that into your cover letter. Make it a bit more, pay a bit more attention to detail. And Oh, it would help as well if you know a thing or two, I guess, about WordPress, I'd assume.
Yeah, although that's not as essential as you would think. We can teach the WordPress stuff. I want the marketing expertise.
Okay, well, big clue for you there. I mean, it's not every day that you get to hear the founder or the owner of a business talk about the kind of person that they want in the job. So it's a massive clue for you there if you're out there listening and you need work at the moment. So check out getellipsis.com and the team's content, SEO, promotions and outreach, and you're that conversions person who's just waiting to apply to this job.
Yeah, let me know.
Okay, who knows? Okay, so in terms of, so we've talked a bit about Ellipsis and how it all got together, and a little bit, I suppose, in a little while, we're going to talk about what this podcast was really, what I really want to talk about with this podcast, because Alex is really focused on really being able to focus while working. And I know that's a big problem, especially for people who are new to remote work, but it's not exclusively to that, to those sorts of people, because remote work has its challenges in terms of work. And I guess in the climate that we're living in now, we're not going to obviously go too much into that, but in the climate that we're living in now, I myself am at home. Believe it or not, I'm at home with my kids. You would never know. But I'm mixing homeschooling with work. So I'm trying to really put slots in place where I can do the homeschooling, which we did a bit in the morning, and then focus on my work and then other stuff around that. So Alex, I hope, can help me in terms of understanding what's called deep working. Have you ever heard that expression before? Deep working. So we're going to focus a bit on that in a moment. But before we go to that, I want to talk a bit more about your team, Alex, in terms of because I mean, I know there's some obviously managers out there, they're listening in terms of how they've gone from being in a co-located scenario to now being in a scenario where they're forced to work remotely, and they've had some challenges themselves, or having some challenges themselves. What challenges do you have when you were first starting out, other than you mentioned the trust issue and the letting go issue? Are there any other challenges that you had?
Yeah, so I do think that doing remote work is hard. I think it's really good, but I also think it's hard. And it took me like years to get properly into a rhythm that really worked long term. So as we're recording this, there's a global pandemic going on. And if you are working from home for the first time, or you may normally do it 1 or 2 days a week, and now you're doing it all the time, it is going to be a shock. And my fear is that unless people take the, I feel like people might have a bad time, and that would be bad. And that instead of this being a great remote work opportunity, people might experience it for the first time and think it's rubbish.
Yeah.
And then go back to it. It is hard, and it does require adapting. There's a couple of things that we do. So this deep work idea is a thing that I personally am a big fan of. We structure our communication asynchronously. Whether you want to do that for working from home for 2 months, I don't know, because it requires I guess if you communicate differently, it requires a totally different way of working.
It does.
So we use Basecamp, and that means that it is set up for asynchronous communication, i.e., everything's on a task, and when you need something, you can say what you need on that task. It then goes to whoever you've sent it to, and they've got the time to write a proper response when it suits them, rather than just sending off pings through Slack or whatever, and demanding attention immediately. That lets people we talk about protecting attention, and respond when they're able to. for me, that unlocks like the big benefit of remote work, which is you can set up your day to be able to focus how you want to do. If you've got to deal with like teaching your kids in the morning, then you can set aside the time later on to make the progress. That's really interesting. We'll talk about that more in a second. One of the other things, though, that we have done that has been really good, and I don't know that many remote companies do it. We sat down to try and work out what was good and bad about being remote. And one of the things you do lose is kind of just spontaneous collaboration.
Yes.
So we just tried to work out how to add that back in. So we ended up with a monthly co-working day. So we specifically set aside a day where we specifically co-work, and we do screen sharing and we do a group call. And like I'll do a team update to start with, and then we'll go through some general issues. And then if we've got specific things to work through, even if we don't need everyone there, we've got everyone there. And then that creates the opportunities for the more random collaboration you might get in an office. You also lose some like general chats harder.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So because we don't, if you use Slack, maybe you can have a general channel or like a random channel and do that kind of thing there. As we don't, that's a bit harder. So solution again, we just schedule a monthly call, which we just have a chat. I know some people do that weekly because we're in different time zones. We found that monthly worked better.
So is everything that you do asynchronous then? Given that you're in different, even though you're in different time zones.
So we default to asynchronous. It probably sounds a lot more efficient than it is, in that I haven't looked at Basecamp since we started recording, but as soon as we've finished, I will check it. And if anyone needs anything from me, I will respond to that immediately. Basecamp also does have one-to-one chat as well as group chat. And we do use those a fair bit. In general, though, the general approach is to respond asynchronously. And when you do need that time to say, I'm doing something else, I'm not going to respond to stuff, that's absolutely fine.
No, I get it. And I hear what you're saying as well about the adaptation. And I am slightly worried as well in terms of the actual, you mentioned the pandemic. Because originally the kind of posts that you were seeing across social media were, okay, so now that we're being forced to work remotely, everybody's going to see the benefits of working remotely. But that's not necessarily the case, because there is a period of adaptation. And my fear is that people may kind of shy away from it because of this whole experience. There's just everything's on top of them all at once. When this experience that I guess we're in now, to me, is not really a true reflection of what it is to be able to work remotely, because you have so much more freedom than you do right at this moment, So, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm working from home right now. I normally go to a co-working space. Even that's just like going to an office, and I spend my mornings there and I cycle in, and it's nice. Being at home all the time, I don't like doing that. And I said I took some time to adapt. Getting a co-working space was actually one of the things that took that time and was really helpful. So if you're listening to this because you're having a crisis, just give it a bit more time.
Yeah, give it that. Well, yeah, I'd second that, because it's just, you shouldn't be stuck in one room or one place. You should have a bit of variety there, but yeah, we can't because of the way things are at the moment. But okay, well, yeah, I mean, similar challenges. I mean, don't just think you're alone in terms of the challenges. As you've heard, Alex has had his challenges. It's taken him a while to adapt. It took me a while to adapt as well. So I just think the best thing to do is just talk to somebody who who has either had similar challenges to yourself, or just talk about them. And like Alex did, they talked about what the benefits are and what remote work is all about. And I think that communication in itself, getting it out into the open, can actually at least start to remedy the situation.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
in terms of let's talk pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
What effect did remote work have on your life in general?
So I guess the main thing is that the most practical thing is that my wife needed to move for work 2 years ago, and sure, no problem. And if I'd been stuck somewhere else, that would have been really difficult. Having that flexibility is huge. And if she needs to move again, I guess I miss my co-working space, but I'm sure they'll have me back, or I can find another one. Is those I can work from anywhere. That's the big one. And yeah, I mean, internally we talk a lot about setting the environment that you need personally to be able to do really good work. And that is, yeah, I mean, that's that's one of the things that really motivates me, is having a really good impact, having to do really good stuff. And yeah, this deep work idea we've touched on is one of the ways that I personally find really effective for me to be able to do that. I guess I run a remote business, and that's pretty cool. Well, I think if we'd have to get an office or whatever, that's a whole different world. I don't know how to lease an office. I don't want to know how to lease an office.
I don't blame you with all the costs and all that sort of thing. But if you're comfortable in that environment, which everybody's not everybody's comfortable with remote work. But if you are, then do it. Okay, well, I mean, as we've touched on deep work, let's get into the whole topic of deep work, because this could provide you with some ideas in terms of not just the scenario you're in at the moment, but your future, how you can apply it to your work in general. So let's get into that, shall we? What does it mean? What does deep work mean? And
sure,
yeah,
so
let's do that one.
Deep work is this thesis by a computer science professor called Cal Newport, in which he argues that being able to focus for sustained periods of time is increasingly a competitive advantage, and that we've forgotten how to do it, and people mainly do so-called shallow work, which is he defines as things that aren't hard and/or you could easily train someone to do in, say, 6 months. Whereas a deep work is a thing that provides these outside returns, and it is something that specifically you can do, no one else can do, and that's where you really drive value. And yeah, I came across this idea when I was starting to work remotely. It's really shaped how I do it. The idea is not especially complex. That's basically it. He has written a book on it, which I probably recommend, but it's okay.
And
the book's good because it repeats the message so much. If you just got it from that brief summary, then you're all good.
Well, what I'll do is I'll leave any sort of resources that we talk about in the show notes, because I think this is useful. This is really it's useful. Yeah. So I'll leave that in the show notes. What I wanted to ask as well about, I mean, obviously we're on this segment now about deep work. What are there any particular sorts of tasks that deep work is suited to, or is it just generally across the board?
Yeah. So what Cal recommends is splitting up your deep and shallow work. I also mix in another book recommendation, a book called Work Clean, which is actually about how chefs organize their workstations. And one of the ideas in that book is process time. and if you're a chef, like you need to chop up your veg before, I don't know what I'm talking about. You got to chop up your veg before you do the other chef stuff.
Chef, really, aren't you, on the side?
Yeah. So in practical terms, that just that idea from that book was really helpful. In say I schedule in, say, after lunch, half an hour of process time, and that's where I deal with my emails. That's how I go on Slack and check any WordPress stuff. So I go on Twitter and respond to anything that needs like under 5 minutes, say. Anything over that is your deep work. And I guess you might need to, so like sending a specific hard email could be one bit of deep work. You've got to write a proposal. You might specifically schedule that in. Say I'm working on some strategy stuff for a client. I like to block out the whole day for that, and I don't have any process time on those days. And that means that when you say have your lunch, you've like got the opportunity to take a break, but also maybe you come up with the extra ideas which are going to move the needle for the client.
Right. And that deep work, you've kind of given a good view of that. So it could be anything. I suppose it's not necessarily a standard time, but anything over that, anything that is not quick work, essentially, something that requires you to really sort of focus, sit down and really...
let's call it 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay.
If it's an email that requires a like just a response, then that's ideal candidate for your process time. Mm-hmm. If it's something that requires more thought, it's something to set aside. So the big advantage of that is that you are much more effective with when you are doing stuff. So it's not, oh, I see an email, I reply, and it interrupts me, and I get back to doing whatever I was doing before. Is because you focus all your attention and don't have these distractions available. It means that you're able to get them much more rich insights and better results that only you can get. And that's why it's so powerful.
And what are how do you go about achieving an environment? I don't know, achieving
so
your environment for deep work.
So I need to know I'm not going to be distracted. That's a good one. I know a lot of people use noise cancelling headphones. I actually use like commercial ear defenders.
Okay. Fair enough. That is really focusing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because I just couldn't find any noise cancelling headphones I liked.
Don't blame you.
So I'll put those on. So if I'm at the co-working space, for example, I found I wasn't getting good deep work there, and it was because there was too much happening. So I needed to block out sounds, and I now sit in the corner. So I just know I'm not going to be distracted. If I am at home, like I just find having headphones on helps. Just a personal thing. And yeah, I mean, it's like the system's taken me is always evolving. I have a daily planner which has hours, and I block out process time and deep work time in that. So I know, like, after this call, I'm going to do this. As we discussed, I'm realistically going to respond to my Basecamp messages, and then I've got something else to do. That removes a lot of friction because the next action you've got to take is kind of automated. The procrastination happens when you're not sure what to do next. Mm-hmm. So this just makes it easy to realize what you've got to work on. Part of the deep work stuff is taking breaks as well. So I take a lot of breaks and I eat a lot of food because I found that's what I need to be able to do this stuff effectively. For a while, the focusing is tiring, and for a while, like, I get to 5:30 and I just want to sit on the sofa all evening. That's no use. So I now take a slightly longer lunch break and like have more to eat, and that's fixed it. But
do you find that you get more done then? than you used to before deep work?
For sure, yeah. I now, for one of my things for this year is actually do less work. So I've cut my hours slightly. And I'm pretty sure that I get more done. Yeah.
Do you also, I guess for this then to work, you also have to, your team has to know when you've got these sections of
Right,
work,
exactly. Yeah.
right?
So if you were working on in a business where fast responses were valued, this would be tricky. Or you'd have to clearly set boundaries. So like 10 till 12 in the morning, like I'll get back to you after lunch or whatever. And that time is my set aside time. There are ways like that you could deal with it. I know some people put it on their calendars when they're dealing with protecting their time like that. And that also lets your team know what's happening. So one of the things that, one of the things that I get to do, because I am my boss, is that I can set those expectations internally. And it's like, we trust you to get on with stuff. We need to keep stuff moving, but it's a balance.
And is deep work then, is that something that you think that, because like you said, it may suit some businesses, it may not. But if you are in that, if that is part of your, I suppose, your culture, I guess in many ways, is it something that everybody needs to be doing, or does it suit some people and not others, I guess?
Yeah, so this is something that works for me, and I'm happy to preach it, but it's not something that's going to work for everyone. With all this like productivity stuff, it's all about working out what works for you and having a continually evolving system. I think before I did this, I had like other stuff, and there's no shortage of advice on the internet about how to do your work.
Yeah,
often from people who aren't doing their own work.
Yeah,
because they're writing the advice.
exactly.
So
exactly.
I'm hesitant to. I don't think anything works for everyone. I think deep work can work for pretty much every like knowledge business, and I suspect so. And the example, this is something that comes up in the book. The examples of where there is pushback, if you're thinking, oh, that I can't do that because I have these special circumstances. My clients need to hear back from me faster. Cal talks about this in the book, like they probably don't. Does your client want to have an email responded to within 5 minutes, or is half an hour okay and they get better results as a result? They'll take the better results.
Of course. And I suppose that's what remote work is all about, is the outcomes, is the results. So
it's all about freedom, and like maybe you're working from a different time zone or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are some of the nice things that currently we can't leave our houses. We don't get, but normal times, that's what remote actually looks like. And
I mean, you talked about your process. Do you have a typical day then, in terms of, is it hyper structured?
I do the same thing every single day.
I was going to say, yeah, you sound like you structure everything to the nth degree in many ways.
Some of my team don't, and Peter travels a lot. I don't work and travel because I just can't. I do the same thing every day, and I just find that helps me. That's what works for me. May not work for everyone.
And I think you're right, and I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to what works for you. But I mean, in that sense, you can also have a hybrid, I suppose, where you're doing a bit of deep work and you're doing a bit of shallow work, or working how you want to work, if you see what I mean. So it doesn't necessarily have to be deep work throughout the whole day, or a certain set structure or criteria throughout the whole day. I think I wanted to get Alex on and talk about deep work because I want you to, I suppose, be familiar with it and aware of a method of of doing better work and listen to his strategies as well, and his mindset about getting things done. And I when I come to think of it now, I do have periods where, even though I didn't know it, where I do deep work. Although what I probably need to do is have more focus periods, especially now, because I'm still getting to grips with the whole homeschooling plus work scenario. So I'm going to sort of start to really have started to designate areas of my calendar to do focus pieces of work, and then, mixing it in with other stuff as well.
It's tough.
Excellent.
Do you want to talk tools quickly? I know
let's talk
tools.
Yeah, let's talk about tools. Go for it. In terms of the tools that you use.
I've tried literally everything. So here's the kitchen sink. I've got this thing here. This is a Timula.
Okay, Timula.
It's a little 8-sided dice essentially, but it's you put what you're doing. So this one says email. You put it you're doing on your desk, and then it connects to your computer via Bluetooth, and then it tracks your time.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty simple. You could just, this costs 50 quid. You could just get a dice and write some things on it, and that would be fine. The real benefit of this is it makes you consciously say, I'm doing this now, and then you put it down, and then your computer goes, time started tracking. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that is very cool. Who makes that? Do you know? Is it?
I think it's an independent company. If you Google Timula, you'll find it.
Timula. Okay, I'll have a look for that. Never come across that in my life. Okay, that's a Timula.
That's pretty cool. I use a Mac app called Focus, which I think is heyfocus.com, for blocking websites. That was a huge thing to start with. I don't use that so much anymore. All of these block your Facebook newsfeed, block your Twitter, whatever it is. If you're in the habit of constantly checking stuff, then having a thing to stop you from checking it is very helpful. And I'm sure there are Chrome versions or Windows versions or whatever. I have a kitchen timer on my desk. So if I want to do something for an hour, I put it on for an hour. I just find the ticking reminds me to keep focused.
No, I tell you what, certain background noises can be stimulating in that sense, and ticking.
That's another thing about setting intentions. It's I'm going to do this for half an hour, off we go. And then when you get to half an hour and it rings, you know you've either done it or you haven't, in which case you can deal with that then.
Why not?
Yeah. And just in general, I don't have email open other than when it's processing time. That was Slack open, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff.
I'm guessing you don't have things like your social open, obviously, and news. I suppose the temptation nowadays is to be constantly, especially if people who are not used to working from home, is to be constantly checking on the news.
Yeah, I actually get the newspaper, which is unheard of.
What's a newspaper? People are saying.
Yeah, I know. So Cal Newport has a very good blog. He's a deep work guy, and one of the things that he mentioned in a passing comment was how about getting the newspaper, and so I get the Economist weekly, and I really like it. It shows me what has happened, and I don't miss anything. Well, I do miss things, but it doesn't matter. I get what's happened after it's happened, not what's happening. But what am I going to do with that information? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, except worry about it these days. Anyway, yeah. No, I get that, and I think I stopped getting newspapers, and I keep promising myself I need to start getting a delivery of the newspaper to. It's good just to have something in your hands sometimes. Just rather than having, like you said, constantly checking feeds or. Yeah, so I think newspapers are a good idea. So you've got a Timely, you've got Hey Focus, you've got a newspaper, and you've got a timer. So
I've got the kitchen sink.
You've got the kitchen sink. You're churning through the work by the sounds of it. That's good. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I actually use all of those at the same time. They're just things that are there,
These all.
And it ebbs and flows.
I'm going to look at that Timula because that's to me is a good idea. I'm going to look for that. So, Alex, what's in the offing for Ellipsis? What's other than you're hiring? Obviously, that sounds like you're growing. Then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we doubled our revenue last year, and we are going to try and do it again this year. We need more capacity to be able to do that, and that's why we are hiring. We may need to hire someone else as well, which would be cool. That's going to let us do more stuff, and there's just more stuff I want to do. I talked a lot about solving problems at the start. I just like solving problems, and there's more stuff I want to work on. And that is what drives the growth for me. We may stop when I get bored of solving problems or need to solve a different problem, but for now there's just more I wanted to do, and I think we can help our clients a lot more. So yeah, that's our focus this year. We're also trying to become a B Corporation.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Is a voluntary standard for ethical businesses.
Yeah, I used to belong to a B Corp.
All right. Yeah. Yes. So far, it's been hard. Just a lot of requirements to meet, and we don't meet most of them right now. But we're working on it. Hopefully, we can do that this year. And that's just a nice external standard to adhere to.
No, that's nice. It's good, and I think that growth, I like the idea of growth. That's the first thing. The second idea is, and I actually put out a podcast about problem solving the other day. I think, again, now more than ever, I think people want to work with people who solve problems as opposed to somebody coming up and saying, I can do SEO, or I can do content, or I can help your WordPress business to get better. But how can you do that? What problems am I having that you can solve? So I like that approach, Alex. And I mean, so before we wrap up, then one question that I usually ask is, what's the most? I mean, you work in co-working spaces when you can, and you work at home. Are there any other sort of different types of spaces that you've worked in at all?
Really boring at this question. So I did try traveling and working, and I do love traveling. And my wife and I go to a lot of places. I just found that I'm not good at mixing work and travel, so I don't. I go so we're remote, but we meet up a couple of times a year. So that maybe counts. We had a team meet up in the Netherlands, which was cool. I had some fun working from Arizona for a conference last year.
Right.
But it's not like I'm at the beach.
But I tell you what, though, Alex, I mean, you see quite a lot of, I've said this before, you see a lot of videos on YouTube and across social media of these people living the laptop lifestyle with their laptop on their lap and from the beach or wherever. Yes, those people do exist, because I've interviewed some, and there's some really great people doing it. But I think those people, those gurus, make it look really easy and make it look as though it's a walk in the park just to sort of rock up to the beach or to go to Arizona and just work from anywhere. It's not that easy. It requires planning in itself and requires coordinating, especially if you've got a team.
Yeah, some people can do that. I just personally can't. I'm just when I'm working, I'm just on, and I just need to be on or off for the work stuff. I can't mix it. If you can, then go for it, and just make sure you get an app that gets your sound out your laptop.
Yeah. Well, let's hope somebody invents something like that. Well, Alex, it's been great speaking to you. I want to wish you all the best with Ellipsis, and I would urge, as I said, everybody to go across to Alex's website, which is getellipsis.com. At the time of posting this, Alex is hiring, so I hope you get this message before I post, before he's not hiring. So get across to getellipsis.com. And Alex, I just want to thank you for joining us on the podcast, and I want to just wish you all the best with Ellipsis.
Thanks so much. This has been really good.
Speak to you soon.
All right. Cheers.